Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I want to touch upon the subject of style leadership. And in fact I've got two videos, the first of which is this one, where I talk about an incident of style leadership in example. But I've also got a video coming up shortly in the series in which I will give you my tips and advice on becoming a style leader yourself. But first of all, I want to talk about this particular incident, which I hope you'll find interesting, because I recently received some correspondence from a gentleman who we'll call Jay, who hails from Seattle in the United States of America. Now, Jay revealed to me that he worked in an office environment, a technical environment, which after the pandemic, he saw that all of his co-workers were taking casual dressing to the almost ridiculous level. And I think he says here, many co-workers opting for hoodies and jeans, and some even delving into the world of wearing pajamas in the daytime. Now Jay is a man obviously of some backbone, and he decided that this was totally unbusinesslike. It didn't chime with his own vision of what being a professional working in a business environment was all about. So, taking the initiative himself, he decided to go on something of a style offensive. And he decided to increase his level of sartorial elegance bit by bit. So initially, I think he tells me here that he started his approach by wearing just a blazer into work. Then he started adding things like pocket squares, ties and so on. Now he does say that there was initial negativity from his co-workers. He received comments along the lines of, "Are you looking for a new job? Are you after a promotion?" And lots of others. However, being, a man who knows his place on his journey to Chap Nirvana, he persevered. He started or continued wearing better clothes, looking smarter, reaping the benefits of feeling more confident himself. And this started to rub off on his co-workers, because he tells me that soon he noticed that many of his co-workers started to increase their own sartorial efforts as they saw him, so they decided to follow. What Jay actually did there was to become a style leader within his own circle of influence. He raised the tone of those around him by setting example, being a sort of mentor to others, and he was the beginning of a sartorial renaissance in his workplace, which ultimately saw everybody looking sharper, smarter, more businesslike, more confident, and undoubtedly more successful in their workplace. Now, anybody who's been subjected to any sort of leadership training in their professional lives might recognize what Jay did. What he actually did was used a bit of participative leadership style with a bit of democratic leadership style and transformatism thrown in there as well. Because in essence, what he did was observe an issue within his environment, decide to take action, and then lead by example himself. And that is a classic example of taking an issue and transforming it into something totally different by leading a new approach to that situation. Now, as is often the case, when there is change, there is often fear, and there's often negativity around it. And a classic example of what happened here was with Jay, because when he decided to start dressing more smart, more elegantly, dressing as an intentionally well-dressed man, many of his co-workers responded initially by, light-hearted comments, making observations about, are you going for a job or a promotion? Now, it was light-hearted in his case, but it can be a lot more recalcitrant if you encounter people who are, a little bit more thin-skinned. And there's reasons for that. Quite often, if somebody you work with who's a contemporary all of a sudden sees you upping your game, looking smarter, reaping those benefits from being more confident, having greater self-esteem, having better attention from others, they're going to feel threatened. They feel that their position is in danger. They might think that you're going to get the promotion, you're going to get the attention from the ladies, you're going to get the advantages which come from this change which you've made, and they can become quite belligerent in their responses towards you. Other people might just think that, by you being so much smarter, you're showing a marked contrast with the way that they typically decide to dress. When people look at them and then they look at you, you're going to look like the boss of that department, even though you may have an equal footing, because you've decided to dress in a higher level to normality. And this is where there can be negativity, there can be snarky comments, and it can make your journey to raising the style in your locality a much larger challenge. Now, what I would say is never let the slings and arrows which will be directed in your attention put you down, hold you back. Stay true to your sensibilities. Now, what happened with Jay here, he was a man who clearly has personal standards. And when he saw his co-workers dressing ridiculously, casually in his workplace, that went against his standards. And rather than being dragged down to the level of others, he stood up and drew those others up to his level. That is a classic example of style leadership, or leadership of any kind. In this instance, I'm applying it to style because that's the platform in which we're having this conversation. But, within sartorial matters, dress in the way that feels correct and right to you. Never be pulled back by the lethargic and those who have a lack of interest. Stay true, dress in the way that you want, and you will be the one who reaps the rewards in the future. Now, I can retell to you a story of my own, where I can recognize on my own life journey where I was drawn higher by somebody who was adopting style leadership in their journey through life. And it takes me back a long way, back to when I was in the military. I was in the Royal Air Force for 10 years, and I remember in my early days of military service, I was initially posted to a small base, and as it happened, most of my colleagues at that time in the department which I worked, we were quite inexperienced. Most of us were on our first posting into the organisation. And we kind of were a cabal of the ordinary. And then a new guy got posted into our department. He'd come from one of the main operating bases in Germany, and he was much more professionally experienced than the rest of us. So we all afforded him, appropriate respect for his greater knowledge, skill and experience. Now, as it happened, this one guy, he was somebody who always dressed exceptionally smart. Always mirror shine on the shoes, always a fantastic crease on his trousers. And, we looked at the way he dressed as a very smart and presentable airman. And of course, we wanted to be like him. We wanted to have his knowledge, skill and experience. And the way that we were able to be mentored by him without a word being said was we raised our standards of attire, our uniform standards, to mirror his. So we shined up our shoes. We had razor sharp creases in our uniforms. It was our way of being able to visually demonstrate respect for this much more experienced airman by following his lead and looking like him. So without even realizing it, he drew us up to the next level of a professional appearance simply by dressing in a way which we all wanted to replicate and to emulate ourselves. And that was something which, now I look back on it, although none of us would have recognized it as style leadership in the way which I'm talking about it today, but that is exactly what it was. It was somebody setting a standard who was in a position of respect, and those below them wanting to be like that person, so we followed their lead. That is pure style leadership. Now, just before we finish our conversation today on style leadership, I want to talk about enclosed cognition and the impact that this can have on our own style leadership journey. Now, enclosed cognition is basically a term which has long been coined by people or scholars who are interested in psychology and the human mind. And basically, it is where clothing can have a psychological effect on those who wear those clothes to make them perform in a better or different way to how they would ordinarily. And the example which is classically used is the doctor's coat, the white coat. And there are studies which have been undertaken where you've got, groups of students, you put half of them in a doctor's coat, a white coat, half of them dressed casually. They give them a task, and those who are dressed in a way which, the doctor's coat, shall we say, often associated with physicians. It comes with a sense of trustworthiness, of attention to detail, and all of those other things which a physician, through their position of responsibility, caring for others, when you meet somebody like that, you believe that they are already instilled with these qualities. And by wearing a coat and a garment which is so closely associated with the profession of a physician, not only does it make other people have those feelings towards that person just because of the way that they're dressed, but it makes the person wearing the garment exhibit an enhanced sense of those qualities as well. And that basically is enclosed cognition, and it can be utilized in your own life. Now, I've experienced that. I've worked in professions where I've had to wear uniforms, military, law enforcement, and I know that when I put my uniforms on, I adopted a slightly different persona, which fulfilled the role which I was working in to a higher degree than I would if I was just wearing casual attire. So it does work. It's absolutely psychologically powerful, and you can use that yourself to positive effect. Because in Jay's case, where he's raising the standards of those around him by dressing in that higher level, it is a form of enclosed cognition. If he is the person in the office that everybody respects and they see him dressed in a blazer, they will want to wear a blazer too, because they want to be like him. They want to have that boost in the psychological qualities which comes with dressing in the way that a respected member of the team does. It's worth having just at least a passing knowledge of enclosed cognition and how it can be used, weaponized in your workplace and in your wardrobe too. So, in conclusion, I would say style leadership is an important part in our lives, not just for us as intentionally well-dressed men, because it can improve our lives. We can become more confident, have greater self-esteem, have the benefits of looking better and having others look up to us in our professional environments, getting better services from others. But if we can then pass that on to others by being a style leader, I think it is manifestly important that we at least try to do that. So there we go. We can influence others around us by making a little bit of effort. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation on style leadership today. Look out for the next video in the series in which I give you my tips on how to become an elite style leader and influencer in your life. Until then, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. Drop a comment into the comment section. Ask me a question just like Jay did. Tell me about a situation in your life where something, sartorial or otherwise, has boosted the situation that you've found yourself in. You can support the channel by buying me a coffee or even becoming a patron and benefiting from the additional video content that I provide for my patrons. The links to all of that are in the show notes below. So, until the next time, be the style leader in your orbit of associates and reap the rewards. Until then, I will see you again very soon.